Well, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Gridiron and Growth Podcast. I am your co-host, Bennie Fowler, along with Ryan Harris, and today we have an incredible guest, 11-year NFL veteran, Brandon Lloyd, but also businessman, speaker, all-around great human, B. Lloyd. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Hey, of course, man.
Thank you.
One of my favorite teammates of all time. You got you've mastered business in addition to the gridiron. But let's start with the football.
Okay.
You were not a first-round pick. From Kansas City, went to Illinois, not a first-round pick.
Big Ten.
But one of the best receivers I ever played with.
Appreciate
When no one thought you could do it, what did your work look like?
Oh, being a fourth-round draft pick, I always talk about the NFL draft. We're at that time of year where it's coming up while we're recording this podcast. Yeah. But I always say the only person happy in the NFL draft is the first overall pick.
Yes.
Everyone else thinks they should have been drafted higher.
Of course,
yep.
yes.
And, I leaving Illinois early after my third season on the field. I was projected to be a first-day pick. That could have been third round, as high as the second round. And, didn't perform very well at the NFL Combine. Had the flu traveling in from California, ran a 4.62 40, just did not perform well. Bounced back in my pro day and recovered, ran the 4.4 that I was, projected to run and could run. But being undersized, I was probably 175 pounds going into the draft, and I just been in college. I was just malnourished. I wasn't thinking about being a pro athlete at all.
Right.
I was just in school, and but thinking I had a chance, and thinking I was going to go in the second round, and end up sliding all the way to the fourth. So the 49ers called me that morning, and Eric Yarber, the receiver coach, called me and was like, I can't believe you're still available. We can't believe you're still available. I mean, bad for you, but it's still good for us.
He said that? Wow.
It's like good for us, but it was just happy to be on it, going somewhere to the 49ers where they wanted me.
Right.
Someone actually wanted me. So I think that was a really helpful component to that. I was going somewhere where they wanted me, and then I could, feel the confidence and get into my groove.
Talk about getting drafted to the 49ers. So you get the call, and then you go to the 49ers, and you're playing now with Terrell Owens. You're playing with some incredible receivers.
It was difficult because this was 2003, so there were still some legacy players there from the late 90s. So the locker room was very much a 80s, 90s culture.
Right.
So,
We're not going to say anything more than that. Just going to leave it there.
There's just, there
difference.
Was hazing.
Yeah.
And so, the NFL happened to me. I was not thinking I was going to the NFL.
You didn't think you were going to the league when you wanted to go to Illinois?
No, I was going to be a broadcast journalism major. That's why I picked Illinois, because I was going to be a broadcast journalism major. So that was just, I was going to school. And then Ron Turner called me in his office one day after, during the bowl week, we're preparing for the Sugar Bowl. He's like, I heard you got an agent. I said, hell no, I don't have an agent. I would never do that. My parents would kill me if I leave school. I would never do that. And he's like, all right, good. I was just checking because the scouts say you have an agent. The scouts here. I was like, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, scouts is looking at me. And then I left the office and I was like, oh, snap. I was like,
about to hire an agent. Yeah.
So, when I got to the 49ers, it was incredibly intimidating because, Terrell Owens was Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
J.J. Stokes had just left. It was Ty Streets who was there from Michigan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This cat, Cedric Wilson from Tennessee. They drafted me, and then they brought in Arnez Battle.
Notre Dame guy.
Yeah. And so what I did was I sat in that locker room and I just started to build my own player. So I was like, all right, there's no way I'm going to be able to do anything that Terrell Owens is doing on the field. But he eats healthy. Mm-hmm. He trains incredibly hard. And then I looked at Ty Streets and his shiftiness at the top of his routes. And then the way he, looked the ball in all the way into the tuck. Cedric Wilson, he was a smaller, compact receiver, so he'd sink his hips, boom, and go in and out of the routes. And I was like, all right, I need to start sinking my hips. So I just took components from these three players and built my own player. Mm-hmm. And towards the end of my first training camp, I made a move in practice, and Ty Streets turned around and looked at me like, that's my move. I was like,
Yeah.
Not anymore.
yeah. I mean,
I appreciate
they weren't
it.
gonna. Yeah, but they weren't gonna take the time to train me either because it's that old school mentality. It's like, dog, this is ours.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, man, I had to go get it. So I need to build my own player. It was also helpful that Greg Knapp was offensive coordinator.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Wow.
We ran the same exact offense verbatim at the University of Illinois.
West Coast.
Really?
Well, you also built your own joy. And there were many things that you imparted on me when we were teammates. How do you build that joy when people don't believe in you or don't see your capabilities?
One, I was just honored to be in the NFL and to fulfill this dream. Well, obviously I was saying I didn't think it was going to happen to me.
Right.
So I was absorbed with sports when I was young.
Gave you fun.
Yeah, and so it's like to be able to then do it on that stage, it was a dream come true for me. So I was just happy to be there and put my talent on that stage and, being a 4th round pick. But they moved T.O. and Ty Streets out my second year. I was a starter my second year in the NFL. I was a 4th round draft pick. So, I mean, I was just like, this is the dream. This is it. So, I'm living it. And it was just, I just woke up ready to get after it.
So second year, become a starter. You were OBJ before OBJ in terms of the one-handed catches.
100%.
And we were just talking before the pod. You want to tell a little bit
He
about
made
this?
that one-handed catch in the preseason game, and I'd never seen it. And I was like, oh, my God, what's he doing? I'm like, he's making a team, And again, just somebody who was happy and just went about his business, and then the opportunity came, grabbed it every time.
Did you always make one-handed catches? Did you practice one-handed catches? Because you have plenty of one-handed catches on tape. I mean, it's like you, Moss, and Odell in terms of like consistent one-handed catches in games.
Yeah, but no NFL players have a tape that's like 10 minutes long.
Of one hand, and that's all
Thank
you.
you.
Talk
Thank
that
you.
talk.
Let him know.
Talk
Let
that
him
talk,
know.
me, Lloyd.
You got to be shy around here.
It's like 9-10 minutes
Of
of them
one-handed
catches.
Yeah.
So, when I was younger, my father, he was a Golden Glove boxer. So his knuckles was all calloused over from being in the mitts. And so I'd always be pestering him. I was obsessed with sports. I was like, throw the ball to me, throw the football to me. So he'd throw out there and, my dad throw like a woman. He's a boxer. He'd throw the ball be flopping around. I'd be diving all over the place, catching it, jumping high, falling all over the place. But as I got older, I was like, I think he was doing that on purpose. I think he was seeing how far, I would be willing to go to get the ball.
Right. You got a lot of young receivers now about to enter the NFL. What are 3 things you would tell them that matters most if you want to be a successful receiver in the NFL?
I think being a successful receiver is, one, mastering the fundamentals. That would be fundamentals of route running and pass catching, just basics. 2 would be understanding, obviously, the playbook. You ain't going to play if you don't know the plays.
Yeah.
Simple. And then finally, I would say effort, putting in maximum effort. It's not effort is it's a talent. It's not a skill that you turn on and off. Talk
a little bit about your best year in the NFL where you won the receiving crown in terms of most yards in a season. I don't know many people who have done that.
I played the last 2 games in the 2009 season because players were faking injuries because they didn't want to ruin their chances for the next season.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? One of the players said to me, "Man, you should be thanking me. I'm doing you a favor." I said, "All right." I said, "But the problem is, once they put me in, they probably ain't going to take me out."
Right, exactly.
That was the confidence I had going into that season. And that season, I was remarkably healthy. I mean, I was going into games 100%. And then me having that effort mentality, having a good relationship with Kyle Orton. We actually genuinely liked each other. So I always talk about it. It was the point where effort and opportunity meet. I was already an effort guy. Now I was getting opportunities, and it just worked.
We have to transition here.
Yes.
Because you transitioned, but you said something to me when we were teammates that blew my mind because you started that transition early. Because everybody, every locker room has a couple of, hip hop or rapping or R&B guys. And I remember sitting at lunch with Brandon Lloyd, and he goes, "Man, I ain't doing no concerts and shows. I'm getting my music licensed by Microsoft." And I was like, "What? Walk us through how you got on Madden and more."
Yes. Well, early in my NFL career, when I was recording music, finally I was able to record professionally, because I was always recording music on a karaoke machine. You know, I'd buy the 99-cent singles from the, FYE music store. And so I'd take the instrumental and make my own songs. So I finally got to the NFL, and I was like, I'm just going to continue on making music. It makes sense. But when I got in the NFL, I realized that the media frowned upon that because of the corporate image of the NFL. Mm-hmm. It didn't match up. So I moved into licensing and syncing. And so I would create competitive music, so it would sound like Nelly. It would sound like Lil Wayne. It would sound like 50 Cent. It would sound like The Game. And then I would license it and sync it to television shows, budget movies. And so I had to deal with Microsoft Paintball. MPPL was one of my first licensing deals, a song called Heavy. Midway, video games. For me, it was more of, taking myself out of the competition with mainstream artists, still being able to do what I love to do, which is tell stories and just be able to have that outlet.
Serial entrepreneur, businessman. Yeah. I'd love to know just what that transition was like throughout your career and how you grew throughout your career, but then also the transition out of football. Like, when did you know it was time?
Yeah, and and to that, while we were talking about, just that shift, in what I was doing with music, in my time in Denver, I was also working in the off seasons. I was working in aerospace sales.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. I met a man at Nuggets games. This was the first business opportunity that I had where someone wasn't asking me for money. Mm-hmm. They were paying me money.
Right.
And so for me, it was just like, yes.
Yeah.
And what do I know about aerospace sales? Nothing. He's like, I'll teach you. I didn't realize how stunted my maturity had been by being in the locker room for so long.
100%.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And so I was like, this is my first opportunity to be behind the curtain, see how a small business operates, what professional attire is, how to communicate with individuals, how to humble myself and cold call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How to humble myself traveling on the road and knocking on doors and sitting in lobbies and and then being coached in a different way, from an engineer, from a metallurgist, from Boeing. Mm-hmm. So it was just an incredible exercise for me. And so that was more me having the foresight in year 8 to where I was like, all right, this is coming to an end for me. I'm still getting after it though.
Right.
But I still need to be realistic about what the end is like for me and what the next phase is going to be for me. So that's, where I was like, all right, I know that I want to go corporate after I finish the NFL, and I need to start building up that professional
experience
while I'm in the NFL.
What do people get wrong that you see now, whether in the business world or when you're watching sports? What do people get wrong about their capacity to succeed, their capacity to do more, to do the things that they have to do to get to where they want?
Damn, that's a deep question. Obviously, you want to have goals, set a plan, stick with it, but also not get pigeonholed into to what others believe about us. I think that's the most important part of that. Yes, I'm playing football, but I'm not curing brain cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
This is just for me, a means to an end. I'm doing this because I actually have talent at it. Yeah, I can make a ton of money at it, but there's going to be a whole nother lifetime that I'm going to have afterwards.
Well, what an amazing conversation. The Brandon Lloyd, 11-year veteran of the NFL, MBA holding, Mercer working, big-ass multinational company. It is now big-ass multinational company. One of my favorite teammates, a teammate that taught me a lot when we were together, no doubt taught everybody here a lot. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.